Ubisoft was bought by Tencent, the very infamous Chinese. Do they make games themselves, or do they just invest in absolutely anything they can? But the thing is, oh my god, I've already given myself a headache. I'm recording this while ill, so leave a like. Try my best. To say Ubisoft was bought by Tencent, although technically true, isn't the whole truth. See, people were saying that it was gonna happen for a very long time now. Unfortunately, it was most popular in the right-wing grifter sphere. There was people outside of that sphere who had heard the rumors, and, you know, I'd heard them too, and I was curious about them, that Tencent was looking to buy Ubisoft as a whole. And then after AC Shadows released, actually did pretty well, Ubisoft did get bought by Tencent technically. In fact, they did it in what I can only imagine was like 50 different lawyers and accountants in a room figuring out the weirdest. The way they did it feels like the solution in like an episode of Suits. It's so convoluted. This feels like something, I don't know, Mike Ross came up with to save a company. Like, so what they did was they made a new subsidiary. So you have original Ubisoft. They make a new subsidiary, so a smaller Ubisoft, separate to the main Ubisoft, technically speaking. Then that new subsidiary, they had 10% of their ownership bought by Tencent. So, yes, Tencent did buy Ubisoft, they bought 10% of it. They bought 10% of a subsidiary of it, so a smaller, separate Ubisoft. But small is a... How do you define smaller? What's going on here? What's the difference? How does this change anything? Well, original Ubisoft is still original Ubisoft. This smaller newbie, you got the old Ubisoft, and then you got newbie. Newbie was given from original Ubisoft, get this, Rainbow Six Siege, Far Cry, and the Tom Clancy IPs. Oh my god, does that mean they have the Splinter Cell remake? Oh my god, they're never... Ubisoft, stop doing my beloved Splinter Cell so dirty, man! So, Ubisoft has not just the Rainbow Six, they've got the rest of all of Tom Clancy, they've got the Far Cry games, but they also have Assassin's Creed. Those are like the three big things of Ubisoft. Those are the three things the mainstream knows of Ubisoft. So what happens now? Well, you're looking at a video with a thumbnail like this, which I actually had a lot of fun making. It's just because of how silly the whole idea of this thumbnail is. But yeah, there's a chance, just like Forza's been doing to really be well in the Chinese market, adding a bunch of Chinese cars. Like, I don't actually know if Forza has BYD, but I know they've got, I think, the MG Cyberster, and I think they've got the Lincoln car. But there's some cooler Chinese cars that I wouldn't mind if we did get in a Tencent appeasing way. Bear in mind, Tencent only owns 10%. So I don't know if their say has much meaning over anything, right? 10% of a new company that owns only the three bigger names. So what can they even control? But if there was a way to appease them, maybe some of the Chinese cars would be that. The thing about these Chinese cars, and this is getting into more car than racing game, is that these Chinese cars are like massively subsidized by the government. So they are like dirt cheap. BYDs have been everywhere recently in my area because they're dirt cheap. You can get them on like monthly for like pennies, and it's because they're massively subsidized by the government, so you basically cannot compete because they've got a bunch of innovation in them. Some stuff that's completely silly and completely useless, but also they're CCP funded cars, so, you know. But on top of that, what you'll notice is I replaced and labeled everything with money. I put everything with a real financial price. Why is that? Well, it's because I gotta be honest. And look, this is not something new to Ubisoft. In fact, it's not something new to publicly traded companies, that they have a legal obligation to do good by the shareholders, which means money, 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 money. And the Crew Motorfest has definitely had a shift just in general away from FOMO, as we've seen. They don't prioritize limited time events that people have to be on the game during, and thus they might at some point buy some vanities while they're on the game. Instead, what the crew does is they provide specific bits of value, like a whole playlist, or I think it's 10 cars in total in-game that are paid only. They provide value, and then they just make you pay for that value, but it's not time limited. But what that means is the Crew Motorfest has definitely been sort of more shifting towards the paid side of racing games rather than the FOMO side. And I guess that's better than Forza, because Forza is on both of those sides. But it's that kind of stuff that allows them to continue production and then add entire free islands. But will ownership from a Chinese investment type company turn Ubisoft into being more, turn the Crew into being more and more financial focused? I don't know. Because what's the maximum financial focus that this game is gonna have? If I think that this game will have a year pass every year. And I can't say I see much else happening. Maybe one of these days they'll make another starter pack, but this thing's the starter pack, right? Like, you can buy this if you buy a bunch of crew credits. So it's like, you know, what happens to this thing if they add a new one? I think if they did start doing more, than just the year pass or stuff like that, and they weren't improving the rest of the game as they did that, I mean, if they started, like, falling behind on stuff, like, maybe we get an update without a map change, which they've guaranteed every update will have some kind of map change. If we started getting stuff like that, then yeah, I guess it'd kind of suck if they then started doing more monetization. But I think at the moment, the monetization in the game is actually pretty balanced. And I guess we're yet to see. But something worth thinking about that you might have already thought about, but I don't know if everyone's thought about yet. Because I basically laid it out to you. Hang on a minute, Sid. If there's a new Ubisoft and the old Ubisoft, and that new Ubisoft got given Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, and Tom Clancy. Hang on, Sid. The Crew's not even part of the company that is 10% owned by Tencent. And you'd be right. Here's the kicker. Here's where I think that this whole thing, Ubisoft being partially bought, a new Ubisoft being partially bought by a Chinese company, I actually think it might have been a net positive for the Crew. Hear me out. Clearly, those three that they picked are probably their highest earners, and they're definitely their biggest public-facing, like, IPs. They're what they're known for. But I gotta be honest, I 1000% think Motorfest has to be up there as one of Ubisoft's highest earners. It's just a racing game in its own. It's a solid game, does what it does, and it's had minimum, I guess we can see, 5 million, okay? It's had minimum 5 million players, and some of those will have bought the passes. Some of those will have bought the other passes, the two passes. Some of them will have bought the crew credits for one. Some of them will have bought, I don't know, what else can you buy? Crew credits? Vanities? The game? You could have bought the game. It's always on discount, but you still would have paid at least 20 quid for it. Now, listen here. I'm not deluding myself into saying, oh my god, Motorfest was a blinding financial success, and it's bigger than Forza, and it's this, and it's that. I'm just saying it undeniably has sold well, with the Maui expansion kicking so much buzz into the game. There's a big chance that Year 2 Pass sold well. Oh my god, the Crew 2's $1 when the Crew 2 was $1, and they had, like, they hit like a 50,000 player peak, and that was during one time, meaning realistically there would have been like 200,000 people who bought it just in general. That was just for $1 on a game they don't even touch anymore. Just boom, getting $200,000 of infused cash. I say this all to me. If the Crew really is one of the biggest earners of Ubisoft left, and it seems like Ubisoft always wants a racing game of some kind, right? Like, if it wasn't Driver, the Crew came right up after. Like, I think only like 3 years difference too. So even if it wasn't the Crew, Ubisoft wants a racing game. So not only does the Crew achieve that for them, not only does the Crew probably earn a whole load for them, but that means that the Crew's got to be the highest, but that means that the Crew has got to be one of the highest earners left at original Ubisoft. A quick side note, by the way, where the hell is Ubi Forward? Where the hell is Ubi Forward? Have they still not announced Ubi Forward? Because I was hoping that they would announce the next season at Ubi Forward, but they've not said anything about it yet. I'm still waiting for Ubi Forward. Oh god. My voice is so, I don't know, squeakier. So there's a big chance that the Crew can get just more focus. Because, I don't know, what else, this is definitely biased because I play the Crew, but what else is there at original Ubisoft that like, games that are still made? The pirate games? I mean, I guess the Assassin's Creed Black Flag remaster would have moved to Ubisoft. So I guess the Pirates game and what does Ubisoft make? I guess Star Wars would still be there. Brawlhalla would still be at original Ubisoft. Watch Dogs. Didn't they confirm they're never making another one? Trackmania would still be there. Trackmania is definitely very big. There's a few games in there that are very, very big, but their biggest hitters are gone. So I do wonder if more focus, more funding could be given to something like The Crew. The thing is, I don't think the effects of that would be felt till maybe even like the next fiscal year. I don't think we're finding anything out like that this fiscal year, which is what years the finances loop on, because accounting isn't always done on the regular world's year. It's done on like a fiscal year for that company specifically, or financial year, financial quarter. I don't know. One is like the accounting year, one is like the fiscal year for a company specifically. I forget, okay? But one's a tax year, but that's April to April. That's the ideal scenario, that the Crew gets more funding, that the Crew gets more attention, it gets more consideration. I mean, there's no way the next map expansion isn't already planned and being worked on. So we know we'll probably get something massive for Season 8 because it's the next big year. And we know that we're gonna get the summer update next, which will be Season 7. But what's the nightmare scenario? Well, probably if old Ubisoft, instead of still acting as though they're the original Ubisoft, instead the new Ubisoft just starts acting as like the big main one. And original Ubisoft maybe gets less attention, in fact. Maybe the fact that the big boys left would be a negative because, well, everyone's gonna go with them and the paychecks are gonna go with them. There's a world in which this massive shift, this massive move over is actually so they can lock in on those 3 main franchises that they care about and leave this Ubisoft to sort of just meander about with these franchises that they have left. That would definitely suck. Something ever so slightly related, that when whispers of Ubisoft being bought out was happening, and in fact, they were happening a couple of years ago, and I remember thinking this back then. But there's a chance that original Ubisoft, it'd suck, but starts getting sold for parts. Original Ubisoft could get sold for parts. Now, maybe this would happen over time as a winding down, I don't know, because they've got the... I don't see that happening with new Ubisoft, but this is something interesting that I was thinking about with the original, like, when it was originally happening that Ubisoft might sell themselves off. Because they could either sell themselves to a game company that locks in and then makes more Ubisoft games as themselves instead of Ubisoft, or they get sold to some corporate investment blah 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 that just want to turn over a quick profit, churn out the last games left, get some profits from that. Essentially, they could have been Warner Brothers, basically. And I think that if that was to happen, that's an interesting thing to think about. No? Who would buy Ubisoft's Ivory Tower? Would they be bought by someone else with a racing game? Would Forza, would Microsoft, would EA buy them to take to maybe strip them for parts? Or would EA buy them to actually make a goddamn racing game. And if there's one company that needs a subsidiary that knows a thing or two about long-term updates for games, it's EA. Or is there companies that would want a racing game? Someone like, now, let me throw this one out there. I used to think Epic would be a good buy. Because Epic used to, like, just spend a bunch of money because they just liked dumping money into something to make it good. Like the Lego Fortnite or the Fortnite itself, how much they were sinking into it, especially with the IPs and whatnot. And so I used to think an Epic-owned Ivory Tower would be pretty cool because they'd sink a bunch of money into it, and then Epic bought the Fall Guy studio to fire them all. I no longer think Epic would be good. I think Nacon could use a racing game. Not a single Chinese car, man. Not a single one. Croatia? This thing is made in Croatia? But I don't know, man. Someone who could sink money into it. But then there's a third option here. What if Ivory Tower bought themselves out? God, I feel like it would be such an uphill, such a clamor and crawl to somehow manage to still get funding for all these car brands and manage the back and forth with these car brands, and especially not having the Ubisoft name to back you. But what if Ivory Tower went indie? Look, I'm sure that the Ubisoft publishing helps. I think, unfortunately, recently, that Ubisoft label has, by a lot of people, been seen as a bit of a negative, actually, but I'm sure that there definitely is benefits to the publishing of Ubisoft. But what if Ivory Tower was to go out on their own? What if they didn't have to fill a Ubisoft quota? What if they didn't have to... Now, this is a conspiracy theory on my end. What if they didn't have to, like, put a car that you must pay for in the silver pack because Ubisoft were doing that on all their other PvP games? What if they could just lock in and create these experiences? They could just create these experiences. They could just add updates. They could do PvP without that oversight. Wouldn't that be interesting? So we talked about a lot. Ubisoft being partially bought by Tencent, the misconception about that, the fact that people just thought Ubisoft got bought by Tencent. No, instead they, you know what they did. And what that means, what that changes, what could happen, what you think is gonna happen, and then just a bit of like, I wonder what if this happened? I feel like that was a pretty well-rounded video for someone who really needs to go back and rest. God, wish me well. Alright, that's gonna be about it for me in a bit.